Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of episode 2 of Stranger Things season 4, Vecna's Curse. This was again written by and directed by the Duffer Brothers themselves. Again, with all my reviews for this season, I'm doing episode by episode, so you can watch along with me. I have not watched ahead, so I don't know anything that happens after this episode, so let's keep it that way in the comments. Only talk about episode 1 and 2 down below, not ahead. We're doing this with no spoilers after this episode. So, jumping into this episode, we get to finally see Hopper, which we knew from the trailers and the posters that he was alive. We saw last episode that Joyce was the one who found out he was alive, and then now she's kind of catching Murray up with it, and she's basically offered Hopper in exchange for money from this character of Enzo. So, that's what starts moving along the storyline with Hopper in Russia, and we see Hopper is getting this crazy torture done to him, especially this elephant torture, which was just sick, where they're literally just pushing air away from him and holding that hose on him, which is pretty crazy. And, we'll see what ends up happening with the storyline with Hopper in Russia. It's not intriguing me yet, but I'm sure it will start to pick up as things start to unfold and we kind of get to see more what the Russians' ultimate angle is, especially even just with Hopper. So we'll see if that kind of picks up a bit. So I'm not really judging that yet. Kind of just setting that up in this episode. Now, like I said in my previous review for episode 1, where I'm really most interested at this moment is stuff with Max, but also with 11, and it really shines with 11 here, especially with Mike landing in California now. And before we get to the 11 part, what's so interesting is with the character of Will here, that Will is most likely has feelings for Mike. They're hinting at it a lot, especially because we don't know what the poster he's painting. He doesn't let anyone know about it. And also in episode 1, the girl in his classroom was trying to play footsie with him and he was just not having it at all. So that's kind of a theory I have going at this moment, that he's got feelings for Mike, and especially with that awkward hug at the airport, and that he wants this attention from Mike as well, almost past just a best friend amount. And it's interesting because this Angela character is really quickly rising the ranks of the most hateable characters of all time in a show, right up there with Joffrey from Game of Thrones. And it was nice to see her, honestly, get hit in the head with a roller skate. She deserved it. I'm sorry. I mean, that was ridiculous, the stunt she pulled to 11, and it was really giving me PTSD of the Harriet the Spy scene with Michelle Trachtenberg movie, with the blue paint scene in that film. Very just hard to watch with that amount of bullying put on one person, and it was good to see 11 kind of get her comeback. And yes, it was harsh and physical, but man, is Angela so hateable. So I think everyone kind of felt some kind of cathartic feeling like 11 must have felt in that moment. Now we're seeing that with the big incident. It reminds me of season 1 in episode 1, where at the end of episode 1 in season 4, there's a big event, and that kind of sets the stage for the rest of the season, how everyone reacts to that event. And that event is what happened to Chrissy from our big bad here in Vecna. And what is interesting is that the person who's getting blamed for it is Eddie. And Eddie's the freak, so it's easy to point at him, right? Eddie the freak from the Hellfire Club. And it sets up this plot where we have Chrissy's boyfriend Jason's now on the hunt. He's got the basketball team that's going to go after Eddie now. The cops are looking at Eddie. And it's interesting because it kind of gives Eddie more of a purpose now than he did so far in episode 1. And now that makes his story more interesting, especially with him kind of on the run and in this complicated situation. But he also quickly is in the know now of there's more to Hawkins than it seems. And we'll see that when we see Robin, Dustin, Steve, and Max find Eddie, and they learn about what happened from him, and then they kind of open up to him, and Dustin, who's classically known for putting the piece together through Dungeons & Dragons, puts together that they're dealing with Vecna, where we see Nancy, who does what she's known for, her investigative journalism. She's with Eddie's uncle, and he's talking about this character, Victor Creel, who's definitely Vecna here, and it's one of those things where we're kind of getting an origin story, which is kind of spooky, that he takes their eyes out, he kills his whole family. Fascinating stuff, and this is where it really feels inspired by Stephen King. I know that's cliche to say, but so much stuff is, and this is right down his alley. And you have this mystery entity. It's moving at a slower clip, but it's effective, and that there's like a whole mystery going on about what's really behind this whole story of Vecna, which is a much more interesting villain than any villain they've had in seasons past, because again, those are just demogorgons, those are monsters, they're cool, but they have no personality. Vecna has a personality, he's got a backstory. So this is what is shining the most for me so far. in season 4 is making an interesting villain. And I think that it is cool because it feels like Stephen King in a slower burn this season. It's a more serious tone and it feels less Netflixy and more HBO, which I appreciate. And that's just by its kind of pace. It feels like any detective show you'd watch on HBO. So I like that. I like it's a nice turn for the show, and they're doing good at making a lot of things feel fresh this season. And even characters that aren't the most interesting, like Jonathan, they're trying to make him more interesting by having an interesting character and Argyle with him. But it's interesting, Jonathan, talking about how he doesn't want to go to Emerson at the end of the day to be with Nancy, that he can't leave his family. He wants to stay with Will and his mom, and that he knows if he tells Nancy that, Nancy will just come and stay with him and not follow her dreams. So that kind of really puts a wrench in their long distance relationship, and it's not looking good for them if you're a truther for having them together. Overall, I'm going to give this episode an 8.5. I don't think it was as good as the premiere, and I do think that the first half, especially some of the stuff with a lot of Hopper and Joyce, isn't the most interesting going on, so it felt a little slow and not that enjoyable. But then it really kicks in, especially once we got Nancy talking to Eddie's uncle and figuring out about Vecna, and then everything going on from that point on this episode, and the stuff with Eleven I thought was really good, and Mike, all that stuff, really enjoyable stuff, and just good character arcs going on for a lot of our characters. So I'm still very excited and intrigued to see where this goes. So let me know your thoughts on episode 2 down below. And again, no spoilers for any episodes further ahead. And please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of Stranger Things. I'm doing every single episode this season, so you're not going to want to miss one of those. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And if you really want to enjoy what I do here, I'd love a tip. That'd be so much. You just hit the thanks button down below. It'd help me do more videos for you guys. Or you can even become a member today and donate. That'll help me even more. And I'll see you next time.